The purpose of this video is to show people our strategy for managing invasive vines on the Cynwyd Heritage Trail. Before you start to volunteer on the trail, make sure that you have watched our safety video. If you came to this video via YouTube, there's a link in the comments to take you to the safety video. Otherwise, you can go to our webpage, which is given at both the beginning and the end of this video. To work with vines on the trail, all you really need is a pair of hand pruners. We typically cut vines, we don't pull them, and so really you just need pruners. For some of the vines, we might want to take them away after we cut them, but generally you can just leave them right in place. The first vine we're going to talk about is a vine called porcelainberry, and this is a perennial vine, and it's related to grape, so it actually looks kind of a lot like grape, but it grows much more vigorously than grapevines and can really cover trees. It's especially difficult when it covers trees. And so if you look at the picture here, there's a bunch of vegetation, but the porcelainberry is a vine that is climbing all over the vegetation. You can see the leaves. They're actually kind of variable in shape, but they're basically kind of triangular. Sometimes they're lobed and sometimes they're not. Our focus with this vine is to try to keep it off of trees, shrubs, and other desirable plants. And so ideally what we'll do is cut the vine close to the ground. And that works pretty well with trees, but sometimes it's really hard to tell exactly where the base of the vine is. So sometimes in order to really cut it off, we might have to damage the plant that we're trying to save. So in that case, just cut as low as you can on the vine without damaging the plants. We really don't want to damage the plants. And so I wouldn't recommend that you just start cutting porcelainberry if you don't know what plant you're trying to save, basically. So it's a good idea to have a goal when you come in and start cutting the porcelainberry. If you can't get down under like a shrub or something, even just clipping the top part of the vine is helpful, because what that will do is it will take energy away from the plant. The vine won't be able to get the sunshine, and the plants underneath that it's covering will get exposed to the sun. So even if you just cut it through the top of the porcelainberry, that can be helpful. So here's an example over on the left. There's actually sassafras in here, and that's a really nice shrub that we want to save. And you can see up here on the left, the porcelainberry is just kind of coming across. So even if we just cut that top part off, it will help. Over on the right, here's a close-up of porcelainberry, and you can see what it gets its name from. It makes these berries that are whitish, and then they turn blue and purple. They're really very pretty, which is why this plant was brought into the U.S. from its native land. But people didn't realize how fast it was going to spread. So this is a close-up view. You can see the berries. Ideally, we would want to cut this before the berries get ripe, because birds will eat them and they'll spread the plants far and wide. The second vine that we can try to control, it has a common name of myelum in it, and this is an annual, so it comes from seed every year. And so we want to try to cut it before it makes seeds, so that maybe next year we won't have so many of these plants. This one is much wimpier than the porcelainberry, so the leaves aren't so thick and heavy. However, it is really prickly. I mean, it has little prickles, serious prickles all over it, the stems, and so it's really very unpleasant to touch. So we recommend with this one that you just cut it and just leave it in place. We'll just try to cut it away from the roots so that it dies, ideally before it makes seeds, but cutting it any time is going to be helpful for the plants underneath. One thing, so this plant, to recognize it, the leaves are kind of triangular shaped. Okay, they're like little triangles, and they're kind of pale bluish green compared to other plants. If we get up closer, here you can see this name perfoliata. The Latin name comes from the fact that the stem grows through, or punches through or perfoliates the leaves. Also here you can see a little bit, it's kind of out of focus, you can see the prickles that are so nasty. But the other thing is that there is actually an insect that is an effective biocontrol of this invasive plant. And so if you see lots of vines that have these circular holes in them, you might want to look for the biocontrol insect. And if you see a little blackish insect that's controlling this plant. Maybe don't cut those because we want to keep that biocontrol insect around. The third vine we're going to talk about today is called Japanese hops, Humulus japonicus, and it is actually related to, it's in the same genus, Humulus, of the plant that is used to produce hops for beer. But this one grows a lot faster. It's also an annual, like the myelominate. And this plant also is really unpleasant to touch. The whole plant has rough, raspy hairs on it, and some people find them very irritating. So it's not really the sharp prickles like on the myelominate, but it's quite unpleasant to touch. To recognize this vine, you look for the leaves that are what we could say palmately lobed. So they kind of look like fingers on your hand. So there's maybe 5 or 7 lobes on each leaf. This one we also want to try to cut before it makes seeds. Again, you can cut it and leave it. And again, with this one, I would just be cutting it if it's growing on a plant that we're trying to save, something that we're trying to uncover. If there's just lots of hops and nothing else, I wouldn't waste my time trying to cut it. So we can help you find places where we want to try to rescue plants that are being damaged. And the ones I'm showing you here, this vine also has a control agent. This one actually has a disease called powdery mildew, and it can slow it down. And if you want to, you could try moving the powdery mildew around to other populations of the Japanese hops that don't have it. But generally the plant outgrows the mildew and it doesn't really seem to control it really well. So we still want to cut this plant away from more desirable plants. Thank you for your help in managing invasive plants on the Cynwyd Heritage Trail. And again, for more information, you can visit our educational web pages. And there's also a place there where you can get in touch with someone who could provide more information about volunteering on the trail. Thanks.